Nathaniel Stone pressed his forehead against the cool glass of his office window, staring at the Manhattan skyline without really seeing it. At 34, he had conquered the business world. Software company had revolutionized cloud computing, making him one of the youngest billionaires in America. His face appeared on magazine covers. His opinions shaped markets. His decisions affected thousands of employees across the globe. Yet tonight, holding the ivory wedding invitation in his hands, he felt completely alone. Thomas Wright, his best friend since their college days at MIT, was getting married. The elegant calligraphy seemed to mock him with every word. Thomas had found what Nathaniel secretly craved but could never seem to grasp. Real connection, genuine love, someone who wanted him for who he was, not what he owned. Nathaniel had dated plenty of women. Beautiful women. Accomplished women. But every relationship followed the same pattern. They were attracted to the private jets, the penthouse apartments, the exclusive parties. They loved the idea of dating Nathaniel Stone, billionaire entrepreneur. But none of them actually wanted to know Nathaniel, the man who still got nervous before big presentations and loved old movies on rainy Sundays. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. "Mr. Stone, the quarterly reports are ready for your review." The voice belonged to Claire Bennett, his executive assistant. Even through the intercom, her voice carried a warmth that somehow made everything feel more manageable. "Come in," he called, straightening his tie and trying to compose himself. Claire entered, carrying a leather folder, moving with the quiet confidence he had come to rely on over the past 4 years. She wore a simple gray dress that complemented her fair complexion, her blonde hair swept back in a practical ponytail. There was nothing flashy about Claire, yet Nathaniel had always found something captivating in her presence. She spread the documents across his mahogany desk with practiced efficiency. "The numbers look strong overall, though we should probably discuss the expansion timeline for the Seattle office." Nathaniel tried to focus on her words, but his mind kept wandering back to the invitation hidden in his desk drawer. Claire had been more than just an assistant over the years. She remembered his mother's birthday without being reminded. Knew he preferred his coffee black in the morning, but with cream in the afternoon. She understood when he needed silence during stressful negotiations, and when he needed someone to talk through problems. "Mr. Stone, are you feeling all right?" Claire's voice interrupted his thoughts. She was studying him with concern in her hazel eyes. "I'm fine," he said automatically. But his voice lacked conviction. Claire set down her pen and took a step closer to his desk. "You've seemed distracted all week. Something bothering you?" The genuine care in her question nearly undid him. When was the last time someone had asked about his well-being without an ulterior motive? Nathaniel found himself wanting to tell her everything. About the loneliness that haunted him despite being surrounded by people. About how success felt empty when you had no one to share it with. About how he sometimes wondered if he would spend his entire life building an empire but never building a home. Instead, he forced a smile. "Just business pressures. Nothing I can't handle." Claire nodded slowly, but he could see she wasn't convinced. She gathered her documents, preparing to leave when something made her pause at the door. "Mr. Stone, I know I'm just your assistant, but if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. Not as an employee, just as someone who cares." Her words hit him with unexpected force. Nathaniel stared at her, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. It's not just his efficient assistant, but a woman who had quietly become one of the most important people in his life. The realization both terrified and excited him. "Thank you, Claire," he managed to say. "That means more than you know." After she left, Nathaniel pulled out the invitation again. His finger traced the embossed lettering as an idea began forming in his mind. It was risky, potentially devastating for their professional relationship. But the thought of attending another wedding alone, watching everyone whisper about the lonely billionaire who had everything except love, it's unbearable. The next morning, Nathaniel rehearsed what he would say at least 20 times. Each scenario ended badly in his imagination. What if Claire said no? What if she agreed only out of obligation? What if this destroyed the one authentic relationship he had? "Sir, you wanted to see me?" Claire appeared in his doorway with his morning coffee, her expression curious. "Yes, please sit down." Nathaniel gestured to the chair across from his desk, his heart pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. Claire settled gracefully into the chair, her hands folded in her lap, waiting patiently. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I want you to know you can absolutely refuse without any consequences. He took a deep breath. My friend Thomas is getting married this Saturday. It's going to be a major event with lots of media attention. I need someone to accompany me, and I was hoping you might consider going as my guest. The silence that followed felt endless. Claire's expression remained neutral, but Nathaniel noticed her hands tighten slightly. As your date? She asked carefully. As my friend, Nathaniel clarified quickly. I know how this sounds, and I know it's completely inappropriate to ask, but you're the only person who sees me as more than just a bank account. The only person I truly trust. Claire stood and walked to the window, her back to him. Nathaniel watched her reflection in the glass, trying to read her thoughts. What would this involve exactly? She asked quietly. Just one evening. We attend the ceremony and reception together. Dance a few times to maintain appearances. Afterward, everything goes back to normal between us. She turned to face him, and Nathaniel saw something vulnerable in her eyes that he had never noticed before. Mr. Stone, there are things about my past you don't know, things that could cause problems if people start asking questions about who I am. The Plaza Hotel blazed with elegance as Nathaniel and Claire arrived together. Crystal chandeliers scattered rainbow light across. Marble floors, while hundreds of guests mingled in designer gowns and expensive suits. Photographers lined the entrance, their cameras flashing like lightning as Nathaniel stepped out of his silver Bentley. He had sent Claire to the finest salon in Manhattan that afternoon, insisting she'll spare no expense. But nothing could have prepared him for the transformation. When she emerged from the car, Nathaniel felt his breath catch in his throat. Her blonde hair fell in soft curls around her shoulders, freed from its usual practical style. The sapphire blue gown he had chosen hugged her figure perfectly, making her look like she belonged in this world of wealth and privilege. But it was something else that stopped him cold. The way she carried herself tonight, with a confidence and grace that seemed almost regal. You look absolutely beautiful, Nathaniel said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Claire smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. Thank you. The stylists worked magic. As they entered the grand ballroom, Nathaniel felt every eye turn toward them. Whispers rippled through the crowd like waves. He placed a protective hand on the small of Claire's back, feeling her warmth through the silk fabric. The simple touch sent electricity through both of them. Thomas appeared almost immediately, his face lighting up with genuine happiness. Nate, you made it. His eyes widened as he looked at Claire. And this must be the mysterious woman who's been keeping you so busy? Claire Bennett, she said smoothly, extending her hand with perfect poise. Thomas Wright, the lucky groom. He shook her hand warmly. I have to say, my friend has excellent taste. Before Nathaniel could respond, an elegant older woman in champagne silk appeared beside Thomas. Victoria Wright, Thomas's mother, had known Nathaniel since his college days. She had been trying to set him up with suitable women for years. So this is the young lady who finally captured your attention, Victoria said, her sharp blue eyes assessing Claire from head to toe. How did you two meet? Claire works with me, Nathaniel said simply. How modern, Victoria replied with a tight smile. And what do your parents do, dear? Nathaniel felt Claire tense beside him. They passed away when I was young, she said quietly. I grew up in foster care. An uncomfortable silence fell over their small group. Nathaniel saw judgment flash across Victoria's face before she masked it with polite interest. How unfortunate. Well, it's admirable that you've made something of yourself. The condescension in her tone made Nathaniel's jaw tighten. Claire graduated top of her class from Columbia and speaks 4 languages fluently. I'm lucky to have her in my life. Claire squeezed his arm gently, a silent thank you, and they moved deeper into the crowd. Throughout the cocktail hour, Nathaniel watched Claire navigate conversations with senators, business moguls, and socialites. She asked thoughtful questions, listened intently, and never once seemed intimidated despite the wealth and power surrounding her. She was magnificent. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Thomas and his bride, Rebecca, exchanged vows under an arch of white roses, while a string quartet played softly. Nathaniel found himself watching Claire instead of the ceremony. She dabbed at her eyes during the vows. Something wistful crossed her features that made his heart ache. Without thinking, he reached over and took her hand. She looked at him in surprise, then squeezed back gently. Neither of them let go until the ceremony ended. The reception began with traditional dances, and Nathaniel knew their moment had arrived. "May I have this dance?" he asked, offering his arm. "I should warn you," Claire said, as they walked onto the polished dance floor. "I'm not very experienced at formal dancing. Then we'll figure it out together," Nathaniel replied. As the orchestra began a slow waltz, he pulled Claire into his arms. She fit against him perfectly, her head just reaching his shoulder. They moved together naturally, as though they had been partners for years rather than minutes. The scent of her perfume, something floral and delicate, made his head spin. "Thank you for defending me earlier," Claire murmured against his chest. "With Thomas's mother?" "She was being rude," Nathaniel said firmly. "Your background doesn't define who you are, Claire. Your character does. And you have more grace and integrity than half the people in this room." She pulled back slightly to look up at him, her hazel eyes searching his face. "You really believe that?" "I've never been more certain of anything." They continued dancing as other couples joined them on the floor. The music changed to something more upbeat, but Nathaniel was reluctant to let her go. Throughout the evening, he found himself falling deeper under her spell. She laughed at his jokes, challenged his opinions about art when they discussed the paintings decorating the ballroom, and somehow made him feel like the most interesting person in the room. Later, as dinner was being served, Claire excused herself. "I need some air for a moment. It's quite warm in here. Would you like me to come with you?" Nathaniel asked. "No, I'll just be a minute." "Enjoy your meal." She slipped away toward the terrace doors. Nathaniel watched her go, feeling something shift in his chest. He was falling for her. Perhaps he had been falling for her for years without realizing it. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Claire still hadn't returned. Concern growing, Nathaniel stood and made his way toward the terrace. As he pushed open the glass doors, cool night air rushed over him. The terrace overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling like stars below. Then he heard voices. Claire's voice strained and upset, and a man's voice he didn't recognize. Nathaniel stepped around a column and froze. Claire stood facing a tall man with dark hair and cold gray eyes. He wore an expensive suit, but something about him made Nathaniel's instincts scream danger. "I told you never to contact me again," Julian, Claire was saying, her voice shaking. "Is that any way to greet your husband?" The man replied with a cruel smile. "Husband?" The word hit Nathaniel like a physical blow. "Ex-husband," Claire corrected sharply. "We've been divorced for 3 years. You've signed the papers." Julian laughed, a harsh sound that made Nathaniel's hands curl into fists. "Did you really think you could just walk away? That you could reinvent yourself and pretend the past never happened?" "What do you want?" Claire demanded. "I want what's owed to me. I saw the pictures of you with Nathaniel Stone all over social media tonight. My little Claire has landed herself a billionaire. That must be worth something." Understanding crashed over Nathaniel. This man wanted money. He was trying to blackmail Claire. Before he could stop himself, Nathaniel stepped forward. "I think the lady asked you to leave." Both Claire and Julian turned to him. Claire's face went pale with horror while Julian's eyes gleamed with interest. "Mr. Stone, I presume?" Julian said smoothly. Nathaniel positioned himself between Claire and Julian, his body language protective despite the turmoil raging inside him. A husband? Claire had been married. She had a whole life he knew nothing about, and the revelation stung more than he wanted to admit. "This is a private event," Nathaniel said coldly, using the authoritative tone that had closed billion-dollar deals. "You need to leave immediately," Julian chuckled, completely unfazed. "I was just having a conversation with my wife about old times. Surely there's no harm in that." "Ex-wife," Claire repeated, her voice stronger now. She stepped around Nathaniel to face Julian directly. "And I have nothing to say to you. Not now, not ever." "That's not very friendly considering everything we shared," Julian said, his smile turning nasty. Does your new boyfriend know about your past, Claire? Does he know where you really came from? Nathaniel saw Claire flinch, and protective anger surged through him. Whatever you think you know, whatever you want, the answer is no. Security will escort you out, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Julian's eyes hardened. You should ask Claire about the Whitmore Gallery robbery 5 years ago. Ask her why she really left Boston. Ask her what she was running from when she came to New York with a new name and a fake resume. The words hung in the air like poison. Nathaniel felt Claire go rigid beside him. That's enough, Nathaniel said sharply. He pulled out his phone and texted his head of security. Within moments, 2 large men in dark suits appeared on the terrace. Escort this gentleman off the premises, Nathaniel instructed. If he returns, call the police. As the security team led a still-smirking Julian away, Nathaniel turned to Claire. She stood with her arms wrapped around herself, trembling despite the warm evening air. Tears streaked down her carefully made-up face. Claire, he said gently. Don't, she whispered, backing away from him. Please don't ask me to explain. I can't do this right now. We need to talk about this. No, we really don't. She wiped at her tears with shaking hands. This was a mistake. I never should have agreed to come tonight. I need to go. She turned and walked quickly toward the terrace exit, her heels clicking against the stone. Nathaniel followed, his mind racing with questions and emotions he couldn't quite name. Hurt that she had lied to him. Confusion about what Julian had said. But underneath it all, a fierce need to understand and protect her. Claire, wait, he called, catching up to her in the hallway outside the ballroom. The sounds of the wedding reception seemed distant here, muffled by thick walls and heavy curtains. She stopped but didn't turn around. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Please look at me, Nathaniel said softly. Slowly, Claire turned. Her makeup was ruined, her eyes red and swollen. She had never looked more vulnerable or more beautiful to him. I'm sorry, she whispered. For lying to you, for bringing my mess into your life. For everything. Nathaniel took a careful step closer. Tell me the truth.
All of it.
Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. You don't understand what you're offering. Then help me understand. For a long moment, Claire just stared at him as if weighing whether she could trust him with her secrets. Finally, she took a shaky breath. My real name is Claire Whitmore. 5 years ago, I was engaged to Julian Mercer in Boston. I thought I loved him. I thought we were building a life together. She paused, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. He was involved in art theft. High-end pieces stolen from private collections and galleries. I didn't know at first. By the time I discovered what he was doing, he had already framed me as his accomplice. Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. What happened? The FBI raided our apartment. They found stolen paintings, forged documents, everything. Julian claimed I was the mastermind, that he was just following my orders. They arrested both of us. Claire's voice cracked. I spent 6 months in jail before my lawyer finally proved I had no knowledge of Julian's crimes. But by then, my reputation was destroyed. No one would hire me. My name was poison in Boston. So you came to New York and started over, Nathaniel said. Understanding dawning, Claire nodded. I legally changed my name back to my birth mother's maiden name, Bennett. I created a new resume with references from professors who believed in my innocence. I just wanted a chance to rebuild my life, to prove I wasn't the criminal everyone thought I was. Why didn't you tell me? Nathaniel asked, and he heard the hurt in his own voice. Because I was terrified, Claire admitted. Every day I worked for you, I was afraid you would discover the truth and fire me. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You treated me with respect and kindness. I couldn't risk losing that. She looked down at her hands. And then tonight happened, and I let myself believe, just for a few hours, that I could be someone different. Someone worthy of standing beside you. Claire. Nathaniel stepped forward and gently lifted her chin so she had to meet his eyes. You are worthy. You always have been. What happened to you wasn't your fault. You were a victim, not a criminal. Julian is right about one thing, she said bitterly. If this gets out, if the media discovers who I really am, It will damage your reputation. Your business partners, your investors, they'll question your judgment for keeping me on staff. I don't care what they think. You should care. You've worked too hard to build your company to let my past destroy it. Nathaniel took both of her hands in his, feeling how cold they were. Claire, I'm going to tell you something I probably should have said years ago. You're not just my assistant. You haven't been for a long time. You're my friend. You're the person I look forward to seeing every morning. You're the reason my office feels less empty and my work feels meaningful. She stared at him, her lips parting in surprise. Night. Dancing with you, laughing with you, watching you charm everyone in that room. I realized something. Took a deep breath, his heart pounding. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I've been falling for years without recognizing it. And nothing Julian said, nothing in your past, changes how I feel. Nathaniel, Claire breathed, fresh tears streaming down her face. But these tears look different. Hopeful. I know I'm your boss, and this complicates everything, he continued. I know we'll have to figure out how to navigate that. But I also know that pretending to be your date tonight was the most honest I've felt in years. Because the truth is, I don't want to pretend anymore. I want this to be real. Claire let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. You're serious? Completely serious. If Julian tries to blackmail you, we'll handle it together. If the media digs into your past, we'll face it together. If your ex-husband becomes a problem, I have excellent lawyers. He smiled slightly. And if you need time to think about this, to decide if you feel the same way, I'll wait. However long it takes. For a moment, Claire just looked at him, her hazel eyes searching his face as if trying to determine if this was real. Then, slowly, she smiled through her tears. I don't need time, she whispered. I've been in love with you for 2 years, Nathaniel Stone. I just never thought someone like you could love someone like me. Someone like you, Nathaniel repeated. You mean someone intelligent, compassionate, brave, and beautiful? Claire, I'm the lucky one here. He cupped her face gently in his hands, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. Once we cross this line, everything changes. Never been more sure of anything in my life. Nathaniel leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid this moment might shatter. But then Claire's arms wrapped around his neck, and the kiss deepened into something passionate and real and right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers. So what happens now? Claire asked. Now we go back to the reception, finish celebrating Thomas's wedding, and show everyone that we're together. Then tomorrow, we figure out the details. I'll talk to HR about proper protocols. We'll consult with legal about how to handle Julian if he becomes a problem. And we'll take this one day at a time. People will talk, Claire warned. Let them talk. I'm done living my life based on what other people think. Claire smiled and it transformed her entire face. You know, when you asked me to be your date tonight, I thought it would be the hardest thing I'd ever done. Pretending to be someone I'm not in front of all those people. Now, I realize it was actually the easiest thing. Because for the first time in 5 years, I got to be myself. The real me. And you loved me anyway. Nathaniel pulled her close, holding her as if he never wanted to let go. Through the walls, they could hear the wedding reception continuing, music and laughter spilling out into the hallway. We should get back, Claire said reluctantly. People will wonder where we went. Let them wonder a little longer. Nathaniel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips again. I've spent years attending events alone, surrounded by people, but feeling empty. Tonight, for the first time, I feel complete. They stood there in the quiet hallway, holding each other, while the wedding celebration continued without them. Neither of them knew what challenges tomorrow might bring. Julian might make good on his threats. The media might dig into Claire's past. Nathaniel's business associates might question his judgment, but none of that mattered in this moment. Because they had found something rare and precious, something that money couldn't buy and success couldn't guarantee. They had found each other. Not the billionaire and the assistant, but Nathaniel and Claire. To people who had been searching for connection in a world that often felt cold and transactional, Ready to face the world? Nathaniel asked, offering his arm. Claire took it with a genuine smile. As long as you're beside me. They walked back into the ballroom together, heads held high. Some people stared. Some whispered. Victoria Wright raised her eyebrows in obvious disapproval. But Thomas caught Nathaniel's eye from across the room and gave him a knowing smile and a thumbs up, as they danced again under the crystal chandeliers. Claire whispered in Nathaniel's ear, "Thank you for seeing me." "The real me?" "Thank you for letting me in," he replied. The wedding continued into the early morning hours. But Nathaniel and Claire barely noticed anyone else. They had found what Thomas and Rebecca were celebrating. Not perfection, but something better. True partnership. Honest connection. Real love. And when they finally left the Plaza Hotel as the sun began to rise over Manhattan, walking hand in hand toward whatever future awaited them, they both knew that sometimes the best things in life came when you stopped pretending and started being honest about your past, about your feelings, about who you really are beneath the labels and expectations. Nathaniel Stone had attended his friend's wedding hoping to avoid feeling alone. Instead, he had found the person who made him feel whole, and Claire Bennett had agreed to play a role for one night, only to discover she could finally stop acting and just be herself. Their story was just beginning, but it was already the most real and beautiful thing either of them had ever experienced.